I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What is going on, my Ghost Squad? Welcome to Tactical Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, September 11th, 2018. It is obviously a day that we shall all remember for multiple reasons, and we're going to kind of dive into what September 11th means to some of us, where were we on 2001, what we know about 2012, and a lot of people tend to forget that September 11th, 2012 was the day of the Benghazi, Libya attack. So we're going to, we're going to talk a little bit about September 11th. I had a whole nother show planned and I just didn't think it was right. I was like, we could have gotten into a nice little social media discussion and had some guests lined up. And I emailed them earlier in the day and I said, you know what, guys, we're going to hold off till next week. I just want to kind of remember a little bit and talk about the good and the bad, but more or less celebrate what America is and remember that we were having a little discussion in the pre-chat that thanks, Ashley. Ashley was one of the people that were going to be on tonight, and I apologize. We're going to definitely have you on next week, Ashley, her in Austin and a couple other people, but we were having a little discussion in pre-chat, Patriot and I were, and we were talking about certain things, and regardless of what your, theological beliefs are, whether you're a Christian or not, or whether you believe in heaven and hell or not, it makes no difference. When you're an American and not talking about September 11th, especially on September 11th, it's kind of a slap into the face to the people that did die and all that. So we're going to talk a little bit about it. We're going to try to keep spirits high. We're not going to try to bring a Debbie Downer tone to this. We're going to celebrate America and all of that. So before we go get jumping in, I want to remind everybody that oh, okay. Sorry, I had a message there. We are live as always on YouTube. We are simulcasting as always on gunchannels.com. If you're catching this in replay, welcome to the show. Welcome to the channel. After the show's over, we will be taking the audio and presenting it as a podcast form over on iHeartRadio and iTunes and Podbean and Spotify and all of those. So if you're listening to that and replay, then welcome to the show. Welcome to the channel. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's celebrate America and I appreciate everybody joining. Let's kind of run through. We got a good crowd. Looks like the notifications might be coming up. I want to make a comment real quick to the chat out there and the viewers that I know that Dale made a comment earlier, and I appreciate that. There's a good chance that emotions are going to be running high, and there's going to be some things that we talk about tonight that may get your blood boiling a little bit. And we just ask, at all possible, speak your mind, feel like you can say what you got to say. Just try to keep some sort of a civil tongue. And all of that. I understand the emotions do run high when we talk about these subjects, but at least try to keep it a little bit clean and all of that. So I do not want to tell you can't speak your mind, but there are maybe certain ways that you can word it that might be a little bit better. So I appreciate all of that. So let's run through the room real quick. And you got Warsaw Patriots out there. He's been on a rant. I'm telling you, Warsaw, I guess it must be called WP, but you should turn your camera on and do a rant video because man, you're good at that. You seem to go all into it. So I'm challenging you, WP, to turn your camera on and go rant style on us one time. I like that. The Troll Daddy's out there. Patriot in the Dark is also in here. Let's go through Guitar Man Pete. What's going on? Brent Winkle's out there. Let's see here. You guys had a nice little discussion going. Georgia Trucker says he is driving, so he'll be listening. He went to go listen to the first few minutes of Clover's paint dry, which now, Clover, let me ask you this. I know that a lot of people say there's nothing more boring than watching paint dry, but maybe listening to paint dry, could that be more boring? I don't know.
Not listening to the actual paint dry, no, but the conversation. The conversation that can be had while the paint is drying. That's
and it was a good conversation. It really was. I didn't catch it live. I was at work, but I did catch it in replay. And I was just making a little joke there. Brent Winkle is out there. Einstein General Relativity. Calaveras, the Tactical Pickle, is out there. How's it going, my buddy? D-Temp's out there. What's going on, D-Temp? Going down, trying to catch up here. There's a lot going on. Gun loving Grandpa Stanley. What's up, Buck? Gizzard Gary is out there. Ashley, we said hello to her, but welcome, Ashley. How are you doing? Grim 90, the Reaper is in the hizzy. The Grim Reaper. Let's go down. MW Tactical is in here as well. Jen Davis. Hello, Jen. How are you? Let's see here. Clover Tack is in the hizzy. In both hizzies. Frankie. Hello, Frankie. How are you doing? David Bowen. The Kingpin is out there. Hey, we can start the show. Kingpin is live. Kingpin is live. Glock Don't Lock. Howdy. How are you doing? Phil M. Rivers. He said, sad day. Yes, sir, it is. But we're going to try to brighten it up a little bit. Rich White, the 1% is out there. What's going on, 1%? Georgia Trucker says he is back. Nighthawk. Evening, Nighthawk. Let's see here. Did I miss? Oh, RL's out there. Black Cat Outdoors is hanging out. David says, Kingpin says, watching drywall mud dry. Now, that's a total paint. That's easy. That's tough. He said paint. That's easy. He said drywall. Yeah, I guess that's pretty bad to watch. Word to your mother, D-Temp. Little Rock, Woo Pig, how you doing out there? Let's see here. All right. So let's run through the room real quick. We've got a really good panel, and we're going to have maybe a couple more jump in. But first of all, we got Patriot in the Dark from Michigan. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. And from South Carolina, dodging some rain. Going to be a little wet weekend for you, Mike. Everything going all right for you so far, though?
Yeah, for the most part. No complaints. But once again, I will not surrender. But I will take everything as it comes.
Well, we're going to be thinking about you and Night Strike, and I think Coy and Garage Guns is in South Carolina. So we're going to be thinking of all of those friends of ours that are on the eastern seaboard that are probably and possibly going to be evacuated in the next week or so, and hopefully it everything goes well for you.
Oh yeah, it will.
Let's see here. Well, once again, he keeps showing up, but I think I gave him a little stomach bug. You know, I tried to send a virus in his email for the link, and I think it worked. He said he's not feeling too well, but we have from Texas, the Tactical Leprechaun himself. What's up, Clove?
I hope it's like a superhero virus. So I hope I come out of it with some type of superpower.
That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I don't know about being the superhero called the stomach or nothing. But
if you could pick one superhero power of all the superheroes out there, what would it be?
That's a good question. Of all of them out there,
there is a lot of them out there.
See, some I don't want to turn this into a geek chat. Come on.
We can start
I want to say this. Picking a superpower is very difficult, and I think that's why you see a lot of superheroes that have multiple powers. You ever realize that? Even when they start off with their origin story, they only really have one power, and then, you know, several comic books later or series later, all of a sudden they've got 15 different powers. Right. So, and I think that's why, because picking one is just so hard, right?
Well, I think the tactical pickle out there gave you a suggestion. He said superpower for Clover being tall.
He's the California cucumber now, by the way.
The California cucumber. Holy cow. That might stick.
He keeps talking trash out there about me. I'll make it stick.
That's right. That's right. Well, let's kind of start diving into what we remember. And I know, Patriot, I don't know if you want to go into it a whole lot, but hey, John A., how you doing? Is it John A.? I always call him JJ. I don't want to mess his name. So JJ, what's going on, JJ? He's in a hizzy. Patriot, do you want to kind of start out with what maybe happened today with your daughter? Because that might be an interesting way to start the day off. And if you don't want to talk about it, that's cool. But I thought it was an interesting story.
Yeah, she just came home and she seemed kind of upset. She's it's sixth grade or so. Like just before middle school, I guess. And I was wondering what was wrong. I talked to her, and she said that they didn't mention 9/11 at all today. It hit her kind of hard, I guess, because we talk about it, and I obviously I talked to her about important things in America and everything. So she said that she got excited a little bit because her band instructor said that there was a tragedy that happened today, and then he said, "Oh, such and such instrument got broke," and that's basically what they left the whole day. Nothing over the announcements. None of the teachers mentioned anything. She wore, her red, white, and blue, and she just was really upset about it. Just couldn't understand why nobody would talk about it. It's important, and we talk about it, and then go to public school, and they just kind of look the other way. So it was pretty, heart wrenching just because it bothered her. I mean, besides me being upset about it, and but
Well, and we've talked about this off the air a little bit as well, but just talking about it lets us remember. And the hashtag never forget, it's not just a hashtag, and it's not just a punchline. September 11th, for a couple different reasons, is a day that I think that America should never forget. And every generation kind of has their moment. And obviously December 7th of 1941 was Pearl Harbor, and that was that generation's moment. And you had November 22nd of 1963, which was the assassination of Kennedy, and that was that generation's moment. And obviously September 11th, 2001 was kind of my generation's moment. And the way you look at it, you can be somber, but you also have to remember, looking back at those, how it changed America. And sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But, you look at Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor was a tragic attack on our soil in Hawaii, but it took us into World War II, whether or not people believe that we should be or shouldn't be. But World War II set our country up to becoming an industrial power. It set us up into becoming a world superpower for the military. So regardless of what happened, you can look at Pearl Harbor and say that took America to a whole nother level. You can look at the Kennedy assassination of 1963, and for better or for worse, that changed America. A lot of people, I was talking to my dad. My dad was like a sophomore or junior in high school when that happened. And he said, that was the day that America lost its innocence. And for better or for worse, America was no longer going to be naive about what could happen within our country. So it opened the eyes of America and kind of took us from the bubblegum, leave it to Beaver 50s into the new generations. And yes, it turned into hippies and Vietnam and all that. But I think it is true that the assassination of Kennedy is when America lost its innocence. Now, moving forward to September 11th, 2001, you know, for me, I had been out of the Marine Corps for 3 years, so I was still in that window where technically I could have been called back. But you're talking about a time when no one ever thought that anyone would have the balls to attack us on our own soil, much less using weapons that we never would have thought about. And so it did change the way that we look at the world. Until that point, we had kind of looked at the war of the worlds with being militaristic and conventional warfare and weaponry and bombs and boots on the ground and all of that. And all of a sudden that flipped and that changed instantly, that now we had a whole new war on terrorism. We knew terrorism was out there. We had seen it on TV in different countries, but it never really had struck us. We had had some internal terrorism with McVeigh and all of them, but an outside terrorism group attacking America on our own soil, it changed us. And we're going to kind of go into it a little bit, and I kind of want to start with Mike a little bit. And we're going to spend the first part of this talking about 2001, and we'll move into Benghazi here in a little bit. But I want to bring in Mike in first, and I think we all kind of remember where we were or what we were doing on September 11th of 2001. Obviously, you were still in the military, so if you can talk about it, where were you, what were you doing, and how did you find out?
September 11th, 2001, I was at my grandmother's house in Newport News, Virginia, or Hampton, Virginia, because my brother was in an international incident. And what actually took place, I was in a very biased unit. And when we came out of when I got back from BNOT, I had asked to take 5 days leave. They told me no, I had to go to the field. And while I was, when I got back out of the field, I had to go see the Sergeant Major about my brother and his incident. And that's when the Sergeant Major discovered that I had over 90 days of leave, because, you know, the Sergeant Major gets in trouble for anybody who has anything over 30 days of leave before the actual war kicked off. So he actually forced me to take 30 days leave. So I was actually at home in Virginia at my grandmother's house.
Okay. When you saw the news and you woke up that morning and saw what was going on, what was your first reaction? Did you think it was terrorism, or did you think it was, what exactly did you think was happening first off?
I was in a state of shock because Sunday I was in DC because I have family that live in the DC area. And Monday evening, I rode my motorcycle from DC back to Hampton, and I passed the Pentagon, and, you know, just sitting there thinking like, oh, it's a beautiful sight, you know, see the Pentagon like that with no traffic, real traffic going. It was just a somber building. Then the next morning I wake up and I get on the computer in my aunt's room, turn TV on. And as soon as I turned the TV on, that's when the plane went into the first building. And I'm just sitting there like, oh, wow, is this really happening right now? And then, you know, a few minutes later, the second plane went into the other building. And right then and there, that's when I called back to Fort Stewart, talked to the first sergeant, and asked him what he wanted me to do, because, you know, I'm right there at Fort Eustis next to the Norfolk Naval Air Base, and just stated, I don't know what to do, because we was never in a position like this. We never prepared for this moment. Do you want me to come back to Georgia, or do I sign in to Fort Eustis? Do I go over to Virginia Beach? What do I do? And he just sat there and said, enjoy your leave, you know? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole hell of a lot you can do at that point, you know. There's really not. I want to welcome in a good friend of ours, and I know he's usually busy on Tuesday night, so I know that it was gonna be tough, but thanks for joining in. We got Adam with the Modern Anti-Federalist jumping in. And what's going on, buddy?
Hey, thanks for having me. Well, I looked out. My teacher was like, yeah, class is going to start an hour later. And I was like, man, I drive an hour and a half. I'm not coming. So I'm not going to be doing a show later tonight, but I mean, I'll do that in 6 weeks. But yeah, thanks. I saw the link. And so, yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, I've been, I try to get you on, but I know that the Tuesdays are usually tough for you, and I get that, and I'm glad that you could join us, and I'm glad you're playing hooky from class, so appreciate that.
No worries.
One of the things I wanted you to bring up was you put a video out yesterday, and we're going to go into Benghazi in depth a little bit more here later, but I think that since you're here, everyone brings up September 11th, they automatically think 2001, and for obvious reasons, I get that. But let's not forget that the Benghazi attack happened on September 11th, 2012. And you put a video out, and guys, if you haven't checked out, it's phenomenal. And this is not dogging anything you've put out, Adam, but in my eyes, that was the best video you've ever put out. That was phenomenal. You could see the emotion was there and all of that. But, you were in a weird situation when the Benghazi attack happened. And if you don't mind kind of recapping it, I would like for you to kind of explain your take on Benghazi and what you were doing in those hours.
Sure. Thanks. Actually, first off, that video, I really appreciate your kind words. That's a video I've been debating doing for years, because of how important that is. And we'll hop into the story, but I want to preface this with this. I was on the USS New York. It was its first deployment. The bow of the ship, 25,000 tons of steel, was taken from the twin trade towers to construct the ship. It was all on the bow. All across the ship, there was monuments to the brave men and women, the police officers, the firefighters, to the people who were just there and helping out. There was pieces of the trade towers. You'd go down this ramp that you could have vehicles come up and down, and there was this big piece of melted steel that was a monument that served to those people. And that was the ship I was on. And we were, so I was on the New York, and I was an infantryman. And what a lot of people don't know is they know that in the Marine Corps, we go around, we kick indoors when we're sent into countries, but they don't really know how we get there or how are we able to respond. The Marine Corps is designed to respond within 72 hours to a crisis around the world. Well, how do we do that? The capability to do that is we do what's called a MEU. It's a Marine Expeditionary Unit, which is what my deployment was. And I know that's a long way of getting around, but I'm on a boat that's traveling around we went through the Mediterranean. We were on the coast of Africa. We had been around Yemen. We were actually literally right at Libya when this happened. So when Benghazi was happening, we were there. We were a helicopter's ride away. We were given a mission set. We actually had multiple contingency plans. We had multiple objectives that we were going to take. It was going to start off with my platoon, second platoon, and we were pretty sure more Marines of the company were coming in tow. We had about 1,000 Marines. I'm sorry, not 1,000 Marines. We had about 200 Marines ready to go because we had the company. And then we had some other guys attached, so we would have had vehicles from amphibious assault vehicles. That's what they're called. They're called tracks. They look like tanks, but they float on water and they don't have a turret. That's pretty much what they are. We were told to when this happened, we're told, hey guys, we're getting ready for a fight. We're going in, and we were told to put on our frog gear, which is basically our fighting uniform, which we were so into the seriousness of being professionals. We weren't even allowed to wear this on ship. That was tuck it away. If you ever get to do cool stuff, you can put it on. But until then, wear your camouflage. So we were told to put this on. We're told to get all our gear out and get ready.
Yep. Fire resistance. To understand what people out there don't know what frog gear is. It's fire resistant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fire resistant suit. That's all it is. Yeah. My apologies if I get into technical jargon.
No, I understand what you're talking about, but a lot of people ask, what the hell's frog gear mean?
Yeah. No, I get it. So yeah, we're told to get into this cool guy gear because we're going to go do cool guy stuff. We're told to get our plate carriers and our helmets and all of our gear ready. Now here's where it gets more serious. We pull our weapons from the armories. Then here's where it gets really serious. And Trey, you can attest to this. They don't give us ammo. They don't like to give us ammo. And they gave us a full combat load, which is 6 full 30-round magazines. We were issued stuffed. We were going to go get some. All right. We had plans to go to the embassy. There was a hotel and there was another objective. And it got to the point where we had Marines from my same platoon that were already on the helicopter. You can only get so many men on these helicopters. So we had maybe a squad on there, which is 12 guys, 12 plus 1. So we had one helicopter load of guys. More were going to come in tow. But these guys were just sitting there on the helicopter. And they were stood down.
These are 53s, or what were you guys going to be going over in?
53s. Yep.
53. Okay.
Yeah. So, and so I'm sitting around here, and all my friends are just sitting around, and we know the first guys from our platoon have gotten on the helicopter, and then they come back. And this was after just sitting for hours upon hours. And then, so we spent the next several days watching the news, watching everything burn as our gear just sat there ready. We were told to go back to our berthing is what's called, guys. It's our quarters. You might call it that. And so we just sat with all our gear just slopped out for the next several days. But the night that it occurred, we had everything ready to go. We were ready to stop this. And you guys know the rest of the story.
I can imagine. I've been kind of in a couple different situations where it was similar. Back in, this was January or February of 98. I was getting out in April of 98, but in January, I can't remember if it was January or February, but we show up to work that morning at 5:30 in the morning, and my captain says, everybody go home. And when you're told at 5:30 in the morning to go home, you know what that means. And that means go home, get everything set up for your family, get your next of kin paperwork signed, go get your packets, and get ready to go. And our staff sergeant basically said, wheels up at 6:30 tonight. And we don't know where we're going, but we know it's probably Middle East somewhere, but we don't know exactly where at this point. And he said, wheels up at 6:30. So, which means we got to be there by 4:30 in the afternoon. We've got to go get gears packed up. We got gear inspections. And for those of you that may not know, the lead up to getting to go somewhere or having to go, however you want to look at it, is pretty atrocious. At least it was in my time. Everything has to be accountable. Every round has to be accountable. Every weapon has to be accountable. When you go somewhere, the armory doesn't go with you. So you check everything out, and you're responsible for certain things. And so understand that I had been married for a year and a half at this point. My daughter was less than a year old. My wife is from Okinawa. So I'm freaking out. I've got my mom, who lives in Texas. We lived in Camp Pendleton at the time in California. I had to call my mom and said, hey, I need for you to come out to California, be with Risa and Sky for a little bit. I've got to go, and I don't want them here by themselves freaking out. My wife was talking to her family about catching a flight back over to Okinawa to spend a month or so over there with her family. So you can only imagine the logistical nightmare of what it goes on for service families, not just the servicemen themselves, the families, how they are affected. So we show up that night, get there about 4:30. We're sitting on the tarmac. And if you're in the military, especially in the Marine Corps, you know what hurry up and wait means. And so wheels up are supposed to be at 6:30. And 8:30 comes rolling around, and we're sitting there on the tarmac. We're getting ready to load into C-130s and all of this. And next thing you know, we're told, never mind, we're gone. It's been canceled from up higher. Which is great to a certain extent. It was great because you don't have to worry about going somewhere that you might not come back from. And regardless of how tough servicemen are and mentally strong they are about going and protecting their country, no one truly wants to go into somewhere where they don't know if they're going to come out. So, Squib knows what I'm talking about with hurry up and wait. So you had to go back home and tell your wife, after you just told them goodbye, you just kissed your 10-month-old, 8-month-old daughter goodbye, that you don't know if you're ever going to see them again. So the emotional roller coaster of a family. Now, let me ask you this real quick, Adam. I know what it's like to be ready to go and then said, we're scratching it. What about when you're on that MEU? Now, we were with the 11th MEU and we had the 15th MEU that we were with over in Pendleton, the 1st Marine Division. When you're on the MEU over there and you're almost waiting for something to happen because life on a ship gets extremely boring at sometimes. So you finally get a chance maybe to go do something. I know you're probably nervous and scared, but you're also a little bit excited. And then you're told, you're emotionally building yourself up to, let's go do this. And then it says, no, we're not. How did you feel at the time? And then I want you to fast forward to a week or two later when you heard what had happened at Benghazi and you thought, damn, we could have been there and helped or whatever. I'm assuming your emotional roller coaster was extreme.
Man, I think for me, when I was in the job, I hate saying it because it's true, but I feel like someone can take that the wrong way. I think maybe I'm trying to sound like I'm some badass or something. When I was in the mindset of doing the job, that was actually what I thought about. But after when the mission was, so I really wasn't there with emotion at that time. It was get ready for the job, get ready for this. Hey, are you ready? Are you good? And that was where my mindset was. It was on the mission and the emotional aspect wasn't there. But I can tell you this, that as soon as the mission was stood down, and then I spent the rest of the time sitting and watching the news, because guys on the ship, like it wasn't a complete blackout. They had TVs and they would play the news for us unless something really, really crazy happened aboard the ship, and then they would cut all forms of communication. But we were watching the news, so I was sitting. Me and all my company, we were sitting around watching these TVs because we had 3 TVs in our quarters in these cramped little rooms, watching this place burn to the ground when we knew that we had just gotten stood down. And it would have been fine if we would have found out that instead of us getting sent in, they sent in, SEAL Team 6 with their Gucci gear and their gelled hair. If they would have sent, if someone would have been sent in to save the day, and yes, I'm poking a little bit of fun at Navy SEALs, but I can do that. My brother's one. And so that was, imagine, it's so hard to describe the feeling, the synced feeling that you have when you could have done something. You could have helped save American lives, protected American interests in Libya.
Yep.
And
that's a hopeless feeling because that's what we're trained to do. Whether we, like I said, no one wants to go into someplace. I would say not no one. There are very few people that literally have that. Hey, we want to go and do this and all that. We all will do it. We all respect everyone to do it, but there's always that. Man, I really don't. If I don't have to go, I really don't really want to, but you will and all that. So. It's interesting. I saw that video last night, and it brought back memories for me in a couple different situations. And I want to bring that up because I thought that was fascinating because that's a side of the Benghazi story that people don't think of or don't know that it's not. This could have been prevented, and this should have been prevented. And well, let's just go into Benghazi real quick, and I'll come back to Clover here in a minute. Benghazi, they say, well, there wasn't really a whole lot. Yeah, it was terrible, and 4 people lost their lives, and this, that, and the other, and it was attack on American interests overseas, and this, that, and the other. But did it really change anything? Yeah, it changed America as we know it as of right this second. There's a very good chance and a possibility that, if you think about it, Donald Trump is in the office because of the Benghazi. If there wasn't the FBI probe and going into Hillary Clinton's emails and what she did know, what she didn't know, what she tried to cover up, what she didn't try to cover up, what the Obama administration as a whole did or didn't try to cover up, and the excuses and the lies that were told to the public, I'm not so sure that Donald Trump would have been in the White House right now. I want to bring Clover in real quick and I'll let you bring in about where you were on September 11th. But the first question I want to ask you is, the whole Benghazi incident, am I crazy? Or, I think it did change America. I think it changed the election, which changed America. And I want to get your thoughts on that. And then I want you to kind of talk about what you remember about the good side or the bad side of September 11, 2001.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no doubt Benghazi was the beginning of the end of Hillary Clinton. That put it out there. Some of her cold remarks that were made after that, and then of course all the scandal and allegations and whatever. We pretty much all know that she's guilty. She's guilty of a lot of things, even though it hadn't been proven in a court of law, I guess. As far as the 9/11 thing, I had either went into town that morning or was on my way into town that morning. But either way, I was either going or coming, and I swung by my grandmother's house, and pretty much, I guess the first plane hit probably as I pulled in her driveway. Just thinking back and thinking about the timing. I didn't really think about it at the time or nothing, but, and they were of course freaked out and, oh, get in here, look at what's going on. And, oh, they don't know what's happening. And so got in on it pretty early, watched the second plane hit. The first plane up until the second one hit, I was like, okay, something went wrong, whatever. I mean, you've got all kinds of electrical interference and malfunctions and different things. Maybe there was something, carbon monoxide in the cockpit, you got to think, or, something. Second one hit and you're like, okay, whoa, hold the phone. It was instantly at that point, you were like, okay, something's coordinated here. And then the reports of, the other flight, is headed to whatever Camp David or whatever, and then the Pentagon, and it became increasingly apparent at that point. So, it was a helpless thing, and then just seeing both sides of it, seeing the bravery of people that, before they fell, because getting in shortly after the first one hit, you got to watch live both of them fall. And there were people underneath there when they fell. There were people in there when they fell, and you knew that, and this was not a movie. This was not the moon landing shot in Hollywood in a studio, right? Right. I'm sorry, it wasn't. There's no way you do that on that kind of scale in New York City. This is reality. But you've seen the heroes, you've seen the ones running in and out and all of that good stuff before. And you knew they were at the bottom of that thing. And you're like, man, how many people did they get out? It's where it's bad, but at the same time, you're thinking about the good too, right? You're thinking those guys that went back in there, they got out dozens, if not hundreds of people. They were able to get out, before it came down. And then, love him or hate him or whatever you think about Bush. This is something that's always stuck in my mind is and I don't know who has watched what as far as certain camera footage or whatever, but he was in that school reading to the school kids. You remember that?
I do. He was in
the aide come over and whispered in his ear, and we're armchair quarterbacking, right? We know what has went on. He didn't.
The look on his face,
that tells you his I guess his character or his feelings about the country or what. I mean, whenever the people that say, oh, it's all a conspiracy and he was involved, I don't know how they can watch that and for a second think that Bush was involved in that. That was such a sincere, real, just look of helplessness, kind of like I probably had sitting there on the couch. Yeah.
Helpless,
And then to his character, he turns around and starts reading to the kids again, because, I'm guessing he figures, okay, I'm the president. I have people that's handling this. The aide probably told him that. He's probably saying, we're getting more information. We're doing all we can, don't freak anybody out. And he can just turn around and continues to read to the kids. He could have got up and just left the room in the middle of reading the story or whatever. Right. But, he was like, okay, I need to take care of what's in front of me, not raise any flags or freak anybody out, So I don't know quite how to word it, but I guess his tact in dealing with the situation, that'll always, and he's done other stupid things throughout his presidency and whatever. Yeah, without a doubt. But the way he handled that in that moment will always stick in my mind. And then just the aftermath of it all. It's one of them things to where everybody in the country, and we've kind of lost that to an extent nowadays, sadly. And that's why we have to remember, these people that attacked our country, that attacked our brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers and children, they did it for no other reason other than we're able to go eat barbecue spare ribs down the road and drive cool cars down the road, and our women are hot and wear makeup, and you know what I'm saying? They attacked. There was no, we've never done really anything tangible to them. They just hate the way that we have the freedom to make choices. It's that simple. And so in the spirit of that, we have a choice to either live our lives to the fullest, or lock ourselves down with security. One of the two. And, I think it's tribute to those from 9/11 and moving forward, and to spite those that would want to terrorize us right away from freedom. I think we have an obligation to live happy lives, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness all the way.
That's a great point. Now I know that Mike was in Afghanistan when Benghazi happened. How did you guys find out about that? Was there chatter? I mean, did y'all hear anything prior to it that there could be attacks, or were you guys so focused on what you guys were doing that Benghazi was literally another world away, which it kind of was?
Yeah, so it took place with that. We was on a 2-week patrol, and the 2-week patrol is we had to go out to a cop away from the fob, and they called us over the radio and stated what took place and be prepared for possible, insurgent attacks. So of course, we just went ahead and prepared, bunkered down, and had our little shifts ready for the action to take place.
I don't remember who it was. Let me go back up here and see. I apologize. It's going to take me a second. I think it was Warsaw, but don't quote me on that. Warsaw going to kind of bring up the how do I put this? It was it was a search, and let's call it what it was. It was a manhunt for Osama bin Laden. How important was that? I want to start with Patriot here. How important, or was it important to you that we found and brought justice to Osama bin Laden? Was when that day happened, a lot of people said that was finally closure for a lot of people's September 11th. Was that something that you felt was a necessity, that we must go track down and find bin Laden and take care of business, or was it secondary?
Wow, that's a big question now.
It is a big question. That's why I went to you, man.
Yeah. I mean, of course, it was something that, for a long time, that's something that drove a lot of us. He should have been caught before, but that's another story. It was important. Yeah. I mean, for the country, especially for people that, don't know the day-to-day stuff that goes on. I've been out of the loop for so long,
Yeah, I hear you.
It's just for the mom and pop, the people on Main Street. I think it was very important. Did it change a lot? Did it affect a lot? Who can say? It was important. I think just for if nothing, just to remind that's why we were doing it. You know, I mean, I don't know.
I hear you.
I guess that's kind of a roundabout answer, but
And it's a tough question because it's a tough question because it's 10 years later, you know, it was 10 years later. But I remember, I was watching a baseball game and I don't remember who was playing, but I was watching a baseball game when it happened on ESPN or whatever. And the ticker came across Osama bin Laden has, you know, believed to have been killed in a raid, this, that, and the other. And I remember, with me, I was like, about damn time. I remember just saying, hell yeah. And I didn't get all emotional. I didn't jump up and down, but it was crazy because I was watching I think it was the Phillies. It's in Philadelphia. I remember that. And I remember that the crowd, the announcers knew. The announcers had gotten word through the earpiece that bin Laden, they were kind of announcing it, talking about it live on the air, but you could hear the crowd at the game start to just mumble, and it started getting louder when everyone's cell phones, they started looking on their cell phones and start seeing the news. And then the players became aware of what was going on. And like the 50,000 people that are there at that baseball game, like all of a sudden, like the middle of the sixth inning, or it was in the middle of the game, just start chanting USA. And it was one of those moments you're like, you know, it was 10 years later. I get that. To some people, it was not worth it. But I think for a lot of Americans, it was closure. And whether or not you believe that or not, I think that's what happened for me. It was like, okay, it's over. We got him. Adam, the whole bin Laden situation, what were your thoughts? Were you one of those guys that say, hey, let's go get this guy no matter how long it takes? Or were you one of those that said, to hell with him, let him go hide in the mountains somewhere?
I'm definitely glad that we took the time to find him. Now, my policy for how the wars would have been fought would have been vastly different, but that may be part of the discussion, may not, and I'll leave it at that until if we get into it, whatever. But I'm definitely glad that we hunted that son of a down and took him out.
You can say it.
Yeah, I'm glad we got that son of a bitch.
There was Jeff Tack out there was saying after 10 years at war, all of the service members that had been wounded or injured, all of the nonsense around why they went to war, killing him was not as a big of a deal. It was another event. And I think if you look at, to an extent, there were two wars we were fighting. We were fighting the war in Iraq to try to get rid of a tyrant dictator that was evil. And I don't care who you are, he was evil. Then you had that was coinciding with the war in Afghanistan, the Taliban and all that. But there was always the second war, and it wasn't necessarily a war fought on TV. It was a war trying to find bin Laden. It was a manhunt, and there were shots fired. There were incidents that happened solely because we were looking for bin Laden. There were people who died because we were looking for bin Laden. So I get what you're saying, Jeff. I don't necessarily disagree, except I will say that maybe to some extent, the death of bin Laden somewhat justified part of the reason we were over there. I think that there were a lot of reasons why we shouldn't have been over there. I don't think that we should have tried to force democracy on a region that has lived a certain way for thousands of years. It could care less about our way of life, but that's a whole different show. But I do think that the death of bin Laden was closure for the American people, and I think it was justification for some of the deaths that occurred over in that region that were looking for him. So, Mike, I want to bring you in as well. When it comes down to bin Laden, and I'll ask you the same question, was it something that you were behind being in the service at the time? You know, you were in Afghanistan. What was the thought? Were you so you were in Afghanistan on September of 2012. Were you in Afghanistan in the fall of 2011 when bin Laden died?
No, I was in Germany then in
Okay.
2011.
All right. So even being in Germany, though, you were overseas when you first heard that Bin Laden was killed. Was your first reaction didn't really care, or was there excitement, or was it relief, or what was it?
Mm, I really didn't know because I'm one of those people. The way it was broadcasted, the conspiracy theories started taking place. It was like, okay, if it's true, cool. If not, okay, what bunker and where is he hiding? What ship is he going to be floating around? You
Right.
know. So I had kind of mixed reviews of it because yeah, we're celebrating what took place. We got the people that said this is what took place and everything, but we still haven't seen any official photos. We still haven't seen
Right.
any official documentation. So I had mixed reviews on it. The one thing I was happy for was this country mended together and there was no BS like we're dealing with today. It was everybody was on one accord. That was you attack my country, my home. Now this is what we're going to do. We're going to come together and we're going to do this. So
Yeah. And that is a perfect transition into where I was going next. And first, let me give you my September 11th story. So I've been out since 98, and I had hurt my back. And we were actually in Arkansas. This is before we moved up here, but I was up here and getting some stuff done with my back and all of that. And I was still playing golf professionally at the time, and I was on a hiatus for injury. Anyways, my wife and daughter had gone at this point. My daughter was 4 years old. And my wife and daughter had spent the last month when they go over to Okinawa, they usually spend 2 to 4 weeks over there because it's really not worth to go there for a week or two. It's a lot of money, but I want their family to see them because it might be 5-6 years before they see my wife again. So they went over there for like 3 weeks or a month or something like that. And ironically, the day they were supposed to come home was September 11th, 2001. And they were flying nonstop from Tokyo to Dallas, Fort Worth. I was supposed to leave at about 10 or 11 to drive. It's about a 6-hour drive, 5-hour drive or so to Dallas to go pick them up when the phone rang, and it was obviously very early in the morning. And why someone was trying to call me at 8 o'clock in the morning, I don't know, but they were. So knowing that my wife and daughter were literally in the air, I was like, okay, well, let's kind of take this phone call. They might have missed their flight. You never know. So I answered the phone, and it was my father-in-law from Japan. And my father-in-law speaks enough English to be very, very dangerous. And what I mean by that, he speaks enough to chop words together to where I can understand what he's trying to say. But to say he speaks English at all fluently is a stretch. Okay. So I answer the phone, and all I hear was New York's on fire. And I'm like, what? And remember, I literally had just woken up and I hear New York's on fire. He says, New York's on fire. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And so I turn the TV on, and sure enough, the first plane had hit. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And the initial reports at the time, it was very soon after it had happened that I turned the TV on, and they were talking about, and no one was really sure that it was like, a big plane. The guys that were talking, maybe that was like a little Cessna or some kind of a turboprop that was flying around the area that just kind of got turned around. No one was really sure what was going on. And about the time, boom, here we go. It became real. So at that point, they grounded all aircraft. It was the first time in American history since they have had aircraft that there was not a single plane flying over except for military and Air Force One. There were no commercial flights in the air. So obviously my wife and daughter were supposed to be flying over the West Coast at that time. And so I'm trying to find out where the hell they are. Well, obviously, I'm calling American Airlines, and they're not going to give us any information. And it's nerve wracking. You don't know where they're being rerouted to. You don't know what's going on. And about that time, and I don't know if you guys remember this, I remember it because it freaked me the hell out. But at one point in time, one of the news channel that I was watching, I don't remember if it was ABC, CBS, or NBC, but one of them came in with a report that apparently there was supposed to be an attack on the Space Needle not the Space Needle, but whatever it's called in Seattle. And I'm thinking, holy shit, my wife's plane was supposed to be around Seattle coming through to Dallas. So now my heart's racing thinking, is that my wife's plane? Is that my daughter's plane? And once again, I can't get any information. American Airlines, not only will they not give you any information, their number's busy. They won't even answer the phone. I understand why. They have more important things to deal with than me trying to find out where my daughter's plane is. But I didn't hear from them until about 10 o'clock that night. So it was like 12 hours, more than 12 hours. They ended up being rerouted to Vancouver. So the funny side of this stuff is my wife calls from a phone in a hotel room, and she's like, "Hey," and I was like, "Where the hell are you?" I said, "Obviously you know what's going on, but where the hell are you?" And she said, "We're in Vancouver." And I said, "Okay, how long have you been there?" She says, "We got here a long time ago." And I said, "Well, why didn't you call?" She's like, "Well, we couldn't find any phones because for obvious reason, they weren't the only plane that was rerouted to Vancouver." So they were shopping that day. They went shopping in Vancouver. Well, I was freaking out trying to figure out where the hell they were. The ironic thing about this, I finally asked her when she got home a few days later. It was about 3 or 4 days later that she flew back into Dallas. I asked her what they told them on the plane. And you can say that, I get it, but they told them that they were having engine trouble and they needed to make a stop at Vancouver to look at it before they continued on to Dallas. And that lasted for about 30, 40 minutes. And then they came on and said, "Here's what's going on." And so she said that the plane was deathly silent, people crying. That being said, the reason why I want to go into this is like you said, what happened post September 11th, 2001? For me, I hate to say it, but it was one of the most special times that I can remember in my life. How this country came together, how there were no social classes at that point. There were no different colors of skin. We were Americans, and everyone had flags in their cars and flags in their houses and wearing American flag shirts and hats and all of this stuff. And for a brief time, we were probably as strong as a country as we've ever been. And my question is, what happened? And I think Clover touched on it earlier, is what happened? And I get that life moves on and all of that, but we need to remember these attacks. But most importantly, we need to remember how we are as a country when stuff like this happens. We need to remember to love each other. We need to remember that even though we might have different political or social beliefs or theological beliefs, when it comes down to it, we're all wrapped in the silk of red, white, and blue. And I think that politics plays a big part of it. But I want to bring Clover back in here real quick. And when we say that America was changed September 11th, and obviously the politics have moved on and we get to where we are now, how much of it is because we've forgotten, and how much of it is because as a country we're pretty selfish and it's about me? Not saying all of us are like that, but as a country it seems to be us and me and not about America. And is that the biggest problem, or is it the fact that it's just time heals? I don't know if time heals or not, but what are your thoughts on why we have seemed to have gone so far from remembering what we were like post September 11th?
I think two things at play. First of all, yes, the latter of what we're talking about. It is the All right, there we go. It is the hey, lost my train of thought with the echo there.
Two thoughts.
The I don't know. I mean, you look at society, not the people on this panel, not the people in the chat, likely not the people even listening, but you look at society at large. Very selfish, completely 180 degrees from, the post 9/11, immediate post 9/11 mentality. And then also look at major events. And one of the catalysts that turned us from 9/11 into being more selfish or maybe not paying more attention, and I'm not blaming the man for this, was the election of Obama. I think that's a historic piece of history. It was certainly slobbered all over with media and everything else. And don't get me wrong, I do think that it's significantly historic. And then I think the focus shifted so hard onto that that it kind of shadowed, unfortunately, the mentalities and what we were going through with 9/11. And then you fast forward and you're talking about the next generations, those that were really young during 9/11, those that maybe weren't born yet. Well, then they lived the Obama thing, right?
Right.
So that maybe they don't understand, they didn't live through it, maybe they didn't get enough history on it. As Patriot alluded to earlier, certainly there's schools and other institutions or whatever that don't even talk about it or teach it to this day. So, they're just weighing it as a historical event. And look at it from your standpoint. You weren't there for Pearl Harbor, right? You weren't there for D-Day. You weren't there. There's a lot of different things. Kennedy's assassination, for example, those sorts of things. So, how do you weigh? Okay, I want to live my life in a post this era, based off of something you didn't live through, right? So I'm not pointing a finger or blaming an individual or even a generation or anything like that, but I do think it's a combination of two things. It's a combination of selfishness and, for lack of a better term, ADD as a nation.
Yeah, sure. Oh, hey, squirrel. Yeah, exactly. The news of the day, and that's the unfortunate thing. There's always good things about the 24-hour news cycle. And there's obviously bad sides of the 24-hour news cycle. Is sometimes the push to be first over exaggerates the severity or the bigness of a story. So every day there seems to be this epic story. And eventually I think that we become numb to what truly is a big story, because every day the media seems to be pushing this. The story of the day is the next world-changing experience. So I think a lot of it is selfishness. Yes, I think that what you said is exactly dead on. I would just add that I think we become numb to it because we've been told by the media that every day there's something big happening, and that's a shame as well.
Yeah, think about it. I mean, not to overshadow some of the tragedies that we talk about, but think about for a second the amount of carnage and damage and obviously lives lost with something like 9/11, and then think about a school shooting or a theater shooting where there's maybe 4 or 5 people or a dozen people or even 17 people, right? Or a Vegas incident. And think about how that is pushed and how years later one thing is piled onto the next. You know what I'm saying? And in the scope of tragedy, they don't even compare to the loss of 9/11. They just do not even come close.
In an hour and a half, there were thousands instantly in front of our faces, live on TV, instantly lost. And I think that that's part of it is, and we'll take the Vegas shooting, we'll take, Parkland, we'll take all these different things that are built as this generation's next changing stone in America. And I don't want to take anything away from any of those people by any means, but we watched live live, we watched thousands of people die in front of our eyes, and there's not a damn thing we could have done about it. God bless the first responders, the police, the fire that went into the fire to try to get as many people out as they could. Thousands of people died instantly. And we're not even talking about United 93 outside of the heroics of those passengers and crew to take down a plane knowing they were sacrificing their own lives to save others. We don't ever really talk about the Pentagon being struck, because 9/11 will always be New York. And I understand why. I understand why. We lost thousands of people in an instant. And that's the bad side of 24 hours news cycle, is having cameras everywhere. And I don't know if it was one of those things where would it have been different if we wouldn't have watched it live. I don't know if it would have. I don't know that it wouldn't have. But watching it live, and we were all in front of our TVs. I wouldn't say all, but I would say that 90% of the world that had televisions were probably watching if they were awake. And the horrific sight of those towers falling, it was just crazy. It was just crazy. What I want to do real quick is talk about where we move on and what has transpired in the last 17 years of September 11th, but also Libya. And we talk about heroes. We talk about the first responders, and there are some people, Tonto and Boone and Tig, and the heroes of Benghazi. Adam can speak to this because he was getting ready to go into that to help out and go into a situation where there was literally fighting a guerrilla war, that we were being attacked by civilians with AKs and civilians with, RPGs. And all. It wasn't like it was a military force. They were civilians. They were a guerrilla outfit. But, I was honored to have a few minutes to spend with Tonto Peranto, NRA. And I did an interview with him, and we discussed PTSD, which is a real thing. And if you struggle with PTSD, that's not because of war. It could be for anything. Find help. Go seek help. There are people there that are willing to help you, to do anything you can. But PTSD is a real thing. But I had a conversation with Chris off air, and it's amazing to me that this guy was shoved into the basically the limelight of a public figure. Not because he ever wanted to be, it was because he happened to survive an attack. And he was crowned the hero of Benghazi with Boone and Tig and some other people that were there. And I asked him, and I said, what's that like? I said, none of us will ever know what that's like, but to go from being a former Ranger and into the CIA, and you're just doing your job one day, and all of a sudden you're a hero. And he says he never wanted to be a hero. He never intended to be a hero. It was something that was thrust. It was a title given to him by the media. And he says that he lives every day thinking about the people that died, the 4 people that died, and how it could have been prevented. It could have been prevented. There should have been precautions. There should have been people to come and help us. Or the support should have been there. Like we said, Adam can attest to that. There should have been more people. But it's amazing to hear him say that, he was doing his job. And I guess that is the true definition of a hero, is someone that puts themselves behind a mission, or themselves behind what they're just supposed to do in life. It's their job or whatever. And we had a discussion last week on Night Strikes about Colin Kaepernick. And I do not want to get into Colin Kaepernick, because my thoughts on Kaepernick are much different than most of y'all's, and you'll probably get pissed off at me. But if you want to hear my thoughts, go check out Night Strikes Hit or Miss from last week. You'll hear my rant. Anyways, Kaepernick. The only thing that I would say that I do not like about the whole Kaepernick thing is from Nike is the whole caption, to stand up for something and to sacrifice everything. There was some memes going around, and if you guys don't remember, and some of you guys might be too young to remember, please go Google Pat Tillman. Pat Tillman was a NFL football player, all-pro safety for the Arizona Cardinals, went to Arizona State, was an All-American there. Well, like I said, was an all-pro safety for the Arizona Cardinals, was making millions of dollars a year. And yeah, Squib says I pissed him off last week. I pissed a lot of people off. I don't care. I have my thoughts, and like I said, it is what it is. Anyways, Pat Tillman left and retired from the NFL, left the NFL making multi-million dollars a year, living in a nice house, living in Arizona, the king of the world, to join the Army, and became a Ranger and died overseas in the Middle East fighting a war that a lot of people don't believe we should have been in. And on top of that, it finally came out that he was killed by friendly fire. This is a man, if you want to talk about a hero, he left exactly the life that everyone dreams of, to go and represent and fight for America and all of that. So it is what it is. I want to start back here. We're gonna kind of start wrapping this up, and I don't want to step on some toes that if they are going to go live. I don't know if he is or not, but he might. I think he is. But let's start kind of wrapping it up, and we'll go through the room. And I want to start with Patriot again and say, what's the one thing when you think September 11th? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? I'm throwing you some tough ones. I apologize.
Dang, I missed the middle of your show. I kept getting pulled out. My daughter came home, so just proud to be American. I know it's cliche, but that's, yeah. I'm proud of the guy that's standing next to me. Nobody is, but
Yeah.
that sentiment, where you can look at something that was so horrible, and just the average Joe stepped up, or Jane, I guess, if there's, I could be politically correct, right? But, just they stepped in and did something that, I mean, if I don't know, that you wouldn't possibly think about unless it, just happened next to you and you had to do it. And that's what I think about, because I missed the part about, where you were and stuff on, 9/11. I was working in Shreveport.
Where were you? I'm sorry. I gizzard.
Gizzard me. Yeah. No, I was down in Shreveport for a couple months installing a press plant, GM down there and stuff. And I was supposed to fly home that next weekend. And obviously I couldn't fly, but I was there, on the Air Force Base everywhere, President Bush landed and stuff, and just the whole thing. I was in a place that
Uh-oh. Is it just me or did I lose him?
I think it's this connection.
Okay. Maybe he'll come back on. Let's move on to Adam real quick, and when Patriot comes back, we can go back to him. But Adam, when what is when you hear September 11th, what's your first thoughts, and what do you wish for America on September 11th?
I know for me, my first thoughts when I think September 11th is just I'm always immediately brought back to reliving the day mentally. And what do I wish for us on September 11th? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, do you wish that there would be more people that sit back and remember, or do you wish that there ever be a time that we not necessarily forget, but we learn to celebrate more instead of being somber? Or, what do you wish America for post September 11th?
I think we should remember. I mean, I don't think that's ever going to be a day to celebrate. I don't think we celebrate Pearl Harbor either. I mean, I know there's Pearl Harbor Day, but it's not really a celebration. It's a remembrance. So I don't think it's ever something to celebrate. It'll always be somber. I don't think it's something we should get over. I think it's something we should always remember, because the enemies that we had, they haven't forgotten. They have a long memory, and they see that as their number one victory, and they'd love to have another.
No doubt about it. Mike, go back to your thoughts real quick on what do you think first and foremost when you think September 11th?
First thoughts, sad occurrence. Alternate thoughts, like I said, it was a time when everybody put aside the BS that goes on with day-to-day life and politics and everything else, and we actually mended together as a nation. You know.
Exactly. Yep. Clover, what about you? Any thoughts on? And you made a comment out there that you see the best of people and the worst of times.
Yeah, it was actually Calaveras that sort of said that in a way. But
Bill's been prophetic tonight. He's been saying some really cool stuff out there tonight.
But yeah, I kind of simplified what he was saying, more or less. But yeah, I mean that's definitely true. Now, as far as when you say 9/11, a couple things come to my mind that's interesting, I guess. And I'll get to that in a minute. But the first thing that comes to mind at the time, I believe, don't quote me on this because I've slept since then. But I believe I was a volunteer fire chief at that particular time.
Oh, wow.
So definitely was being a Podunk County and a volunteer fire chief. I mean, come on, I was not like a New York firefighter, obviously, but I kind of understood, right? And they were still brothers in a way. So for me, and I'm looking right now across the room on the wall, I have a book of stamps where the firefighters are raising the flag, that particular stamp. Yeah. I have a book of stamps. Those are framed on my wall over there. So for me, the instant I see or hear 9/11, that's the image I go to, the firefighters raising the flag from the rubble, right? America, first responders, that sort of thing. With as far as something weird is I find myself, and we all probably do this, where we'll click our phone or something, right? Or we'll look down at the clock and it'll have a certain number. I find myself regularly looking at the clock when it's 9/11 for some reason.
Ew.
And I don't think bad thoughts. I kind of smile when I see it. And I don't smile because it's a happy thing, but I smile because it's a reminder. It's like, thanks, phone. Appreciate it. I need to, I need to be reminded every now and then, and everybody does, that this ties back into what Calaveras said. We see the best of people in the worst of times, but you don't have to wait for those bad times to be your best.
No, I agree 100%. And, for the weeks and probably up to a few months after 9/11, I think it kind of, once Christmas hit and it moved on to 2002, I won't say 22, but it was 2002. Maybe it started kind of getting back, but definitely till Christmas, it was still, everything was that whole 3 or 4 months was just nuts. I remember for the first time people stopping on the side of the road and helping someone change a tire. How many times would we always just drive by and say, man, that sucks for that guy or whatever? But I remember something as simple as, if anyone ever pulled over because their car was broke down or they had a flat tire, for a few months there, they had 10 cars there to help them. You had people helping elderly out from Walmart with their groceries. It was, like you said, we saw the best of what America could be. And we, like I said, we put political agendas, we put religious belief and racial tensions aside and became Americans. And, I know that it's a pipe dream. And I know that it's the candy apple of the world, but I wish we could always be like that, because we were a great country for a few months. I think that if the forefathers would have looked and not knowing what happened, if they didn't know that September 11th happened, but they look over at October 15th, 2001, and were able to look down on America and see how we were, I think they would have been happy. They probably would have said, that's exactly what we thought America could be. And it is sad that it takes a tragedy to bring us together. And yeah, I just for me 9/11, I think America, and I know that's going to sound sappy and corny, but I do remember watching thousands of people instantly die, and I remember being completely helpless and having that that feeling in the pit of your stomach going, I don't understand what is going on. And I like to think of myself as a relatively intelligent person, and I didn't understand because you've never seen that before. We weren't around for Kennedy, at least I wasn't. We weren't there for Pearl Harbor. What in the hell is going on here? But I remember just being an American, and some of the warmest times I remember were, and I don't know if you guys are the same way, but I mean, how many like community cookouts and community get-togethers did your communities and areas have in the next few months after September 11th, when everyone brought a dish, everyone just hang out and hugged each other and said, I love you and thank you and all that really, that's what I tend to remember is the love that we had. And it's so sad that love is gone in a heartbeat, and we go back to being enemies instead of Americans. And that's what I think. And I wish we could get that love back. And I wish we could understand that, we're not Republicans, we're not Democrats, we're not libertarians, we're not atheists, we're not Muslim, we're not Jewish, we're not Christian. We're Americans. And the quicker that we come to realize that no matter what happens on the media and the news and what happens in the White House or what happens in Congress or the Supreme Court, we're Americans, and we need to understand that we have to have each other's back. And I think that's what I'll always remember is for a very short time, we had each other's back. And I love that about where we were. And I wish that would come on. Let's run through the room real quick and let you guys plug what you got to plug. Before we get going, I do want to announce that the September Drill of the Month will be released later on this week. I want to send a big congrats out to Mike Ozzy Osbourne. The metal god himself was the winner of the the August Drill of the Month, was in the line of fire. So congratulations to Ozzy. Your prize is in the mail. You should be getting it tomorrow and the next day. But congratulations to Ozzy. Did a great job shooting. I want to announce I put a video out there. I'm starting a new podcast. It's going to be a dedicated podcast. It's going to be going out on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean. It's called the Armed Citizen Podcast, where we're going to discuss kind of what it means to be an armed citizen. And we'll talk politics. We'll talk all sorts of different things. It's going to be more of a one-on-one interview style podcast. That the first will be released this weekend. The first guest, the inaugural guest on it, he thought he was going to be the second one, but I told him that because I didn't want him to feel the pressure of being the first. But he did such a great job. He is going to be the first. It is Patriot in the Dark, where he talked about being visually impaired and blind in the gun community. So thanks for coming on and doing that, Patriot. I appreciate it. I want you to go ahead and plug anything that you got going on right now.
I just appreciate you putting me on tonight. This one was important to me. Sorry, I missed half of it, but
it's all good
connection. But
no, I understand.
It back in the replay. But yeah, I appreciate it. I got some stuff out there, but it comes when it comes. So this is today was important. So that's all what this is about. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Hemi out there. What's going on, Hemi? He said he just got here and he just came in. But Rick out there says you're a great American. God bless you. Well, thank you, Rick, and I appreciate you very much. Thanks to the super chat. That will be going to the Super 5 Fund. Appreciate you very much. And I think if we all try to be better Americans, this country would be a lot better off. But thank you. That means a lot to me. I try to be a good American. I try to be a good citizen. So appreciate you very much, Rick. And Adam, you got anything, closing remarks, anything you need to plug?
Sure. Just, well, first off, thank you so much for having me. As you saw in the side chat, I said that this was a honest, to God kick in the nuts as far as this conversation went, because it's so hard. It's so emotional. It brings up so many past memories, but I was glad to be part of it. So we have a 6-week 6-week break until I get back to Tuesdays. But every Saturday, I do have my This Week in Stupid, which is off topic from guns, but it's a lot of fun. I hope everyone will come out and join.
Yeah, Clover, I just saw the question in the side chat. My bad, man. I typically don't look at the Hangout side when I'm doing this. I'm more looking at the other stuff. But do you want to bring this thing up, or do you want to bring it up?
Nah, don't worry about it.
Well, go ahead and since you're talking, do you have anything in closing, and what do you have going on? I know you got a bunch going on, but do you want to talk about that?
As far as closing, I think I don't know. I think we've covered most everything we need to cover. So, yeah, definitely. Coming up, no, man, I'm a slacker. I don't do nothing. So. I don't know. We got I did confirm. I know the show last night was talking about I hadn't got the confirmation or anything going for the guest for tomorrow night, but I did. I got to speak with that kiddo this morning. He's 7 hours ahead of us because he's in Africa. Right.
I knew he was overseas. I know exactly where.
That's why I hadn't heard from him. It's going to be tricky. It's going to be like 2:00 in the morning there when he's on with us. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. He's from Africa, so he's got that British accent or whatever. It's going to be interesting for sure.
Mike, what you got going on? You want to have any closing, and you want to plug some stuff?
Sure. For those who like to listen to podcasts, you can find me weekly on the Black Man with the Gun podcast, where you can find me giving the tips and review segment, also being a co-host, having a conversation with Ken Blanchard about topics around the 2A community. If you haven't done so, go download the app, Black Man with the Gun. For those who want to just talk, or if you want to share ideas, or whatever the reason you want to contact me, call me at 803-250-1256. You can leave a voicemail or a text message if you want to get my opinion and views on different topics related around the 2A community. If you are interested in having me do a product review for you or either someone else, give me a call at that same phone number, 803-250-1256, or email me info@m-wtactical.com, and I promise I will get back to you. For those who are willing to contribute to our efforts with the society outreach, you can contribute to gofundme.com/m-wtactical. Right now, we have one deputy sheriff and jiu-jitsu training already paid up for a year. Our next goal is to try to reach $3,000 by October 1st so we can get the other two sheriffs into jiu-jitsu training for a year. Again, go to gofundme.com/m-wtactical and help us get these sheriffs into some training that will benefit them and their job. If you haven't done so, please go subscribe and like on my Facebook and Instagram page under M-W Tactical. Every Tuesday, we put up a product review video. So this week, we did a product review on the Codair eyewear. All right. Here in the next couple weeks, we're going to be doing a product review on the primary arm Cyclops. And I'm still debating on if I will give this away in some form of a competition after I do a product review on it. But if you're interested in checking out the videos that I do product reviews on, please go to Gunstreamer and look me up under Munitions, Weapons, Tactical. Under YouTube, GunTube, and OogeTube, you can find me under M-W Tactical. And like I said, here in the next few weeks, I'm still determining if I want to give this away to a lucky viewer. At the same time, I have a reloader kit. I'm still trying to think of a way to bring that out as well. So if anybody have any ideas, please email me, give me a call, share your ideas on how we can make a fun contest to give either the optic or the reloading kit to a lucky viewer.
Yeah, Mike's doing some great things, not only on his channel, but in the community. So please go check that out and help him out if you can. Clover was channeling, as someone said, his inner Shakespeare. He says, I love you. You love me. We're a two-way family. We shoot for defense. We shoot for fun. But the most important thing is to own a gun. That's awesome stuff. Guys, let's try our very best. Let's try to get people around us to understand what being an American is. And let's try to, no matter how much our blood boils because someone is speaking about political stuff that is completely opposite of what we believe, let's always remember in the back of our minds that regardless if we believe politically, we all stand for the flag. We all believe in the flag, and we all, we bleed red, white, and blue. So let's try to all be better Americans. And it is okay to say, I love you to your neighbors, to your friends, to strangers. Go help a stranger out. You never know what a kind act of humility and self, I don't even know what to call it. I'm trying to be prophetic here, but helping someone out in a time of need for no other reason but to help. You don't know how that's going to affect their lives. And if you help somebody out or you say, I love you to somebody, that might change them to where they go help somebody out and they say, I love you. And next thing you know, we've got a kinder, gentler, more peaceful America. So I'm going to steal a line from Clover. Don't be afraid to hug your kiddos and tell them I love them. Don't be afraid to hug your friends and your coworkers and your colleagues. It's okay to shake their hand or give them a hug and say, I love you. And honestly, thank everybody that's in your life that's there to support you. I want to say thank you to all the viewers, all my patrons, all of my buddies, all of my peers, everyone in this room, on the panel and in the chat, everyone who's listening later on. Man, you guys make it so easy to do this because you allow me to speak my mind, and whether I agree with you on some of the things or not, it's okay. And my buddies in here, they're just solid Americans. They're solid people, and I like to think I surround myself with good people, and the people that I've met in the last year or so are some of the most rock solid people I've ever met in my life. So I call you guys my friends, and some of you I never met in person. So I do believe that. Welcome to Costco. I love you. Thank you. Ellis, man, thank you, brother. Let's just try to be better Americans. Let's try to make that it's something we could try to do, and maybe that catches on. And don't be afraid to wear red, white, and blue, and don't be afraid to just be nicer to people, regardless if you believe and agree with their thoughts. Just be nicer and be more peaceful and all that. So I want to leave it at that. Please go check out on Thursday night at 8 Eastern. You've got Tack Daddy. You'll mean to plug a show. It's Aware and Prepared Live. And go check that on Kevin the Tack Daddy's channel. I want to say that Night Strike is live right now. I don't think he was going to, but then I guess the rain wasn't as bad, so he is live. Go check out Hit or Miss. On YouTube, it is Night Strike 1 is the channel. On gun channels, it is Hit or Miss. If you didn't catch all of this, go check it out on Gunstreamer, on GunTube, on YouTube. You can check it out in podcast form over on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, and Podbean. So thank you all for watching. Let's make sure that we try to be better Americans and that we never forget September 11th. And I say this with all sincerity and love. Semper Fidelis.